So a few days ago, I uploaded a video to my YouTube channel where I was doing a live performance on the DJS-1000, but I was also triggering visuals at the very same time with the same unit. This is how it looked. So in this video, I thought I'd show you exactly how I did it. So I've talked about this bit of kit quite a bit, the Pioneer DJS-1000. It's Pioneer's DJ sampler and it goes with all the rest of their DJ equipment. And I love using it in my sets because I love adding extra live performance elements into there. It makes it for a really kind of creative set. It makes my set quite unique and it's just so much fun to play around with. But I've always kind of wondered what the crowd actually think I'm doing with this bit of kit. When a crowd goes to see a DJ, they're used to a DJ mixing 2, maybe 3 records together, maybe 4 if it's Roger Sanchez. But do they actually know what's going on with a bit of kit like this? It's very new, certainly even to DJs, but to the crowd, it's a load of flashing lights. What is it actually doing? So it kind of got me thinking, how can we put the message across? How can we show what we're doing with this bit of kit? And that's how the last video came about. And that's what I thought I'd explain in this video. So in the last video, I did this live performance with the DJS-1000 where it was also triggering visuals. Now I had to go a whole load of different ways to kind of figure out how to do this, because usually when you're playing with a DJS, you're playing with samples, with loops, you're triggering drums, you're triggering bass samples, vocal loops and things like that. But obviously once it's doing that, it can't really do much else. So I kind of thought, well, what other kind of options do we have out there? Well, I knew that the DJS, like the SP16, can actually control MIDI instruments. So it has MIDI out on there. It also has USB on there as well. So it can kind of link up to other DJ players and MacBooks and PCs and laptops and things like that. So it kind of got me thinking, I wonder if there's a way to send MIDI messages to a computer that is connected, and then it triggers instruments, but it also triggers visuals at the same time. So the first thing I wanted to do is actually go into the DJS. So if you go into the DJS, you can actually set any one of the pads as a MIDI output. So you can actually choose what channel of MIDI you want to send out from that individual pad. So the first thing I did was went through and set all of the pads on that particular project to the different MIDI channels. So 1 through 16. So each pad was controlling a different MIDI channel. Now, within the sync settings within the DJS, it's kind of hidden within there, but you choose what kind of MIDI that it outputs. The usual DIN MIDI, which is the usual MIDI cables, but you've also got USB MIDI as well. So with that set, you can then plug your DJS into your computer, which is what I did next. The next thing I did was actually get it set up within Ableton. So it's a case of going through the preferences, finding, once the DJS has been plugged in, it'll actually show up there as a MIDI controller and just getting that set up. It's very simple. It's just like installing any other generic MIDI keyboard. It works quite easily actually. And then it's really just a case of going through all the individual channels and actually just mapping them to the 16 channels that the DJS is outputting. So as we mentioned earlier, all 16 pads are controlling different channels of MIDI, 1 through 16. So it's just a case of going through each individual track within Ableton, setting the input to in, and then setting which MIDI channel is coming into that particular track. It's really as simple as that. And then once you kind of got that up and running, obviously, as soon as you hit a pad on the DJS, it will then trigger a sample within Ableton. So basically I've turned the DJS-1000 into a MIDI controller, just like any other USB MIDI keyboard. So when I hit one of the pads on the DJS, it will then play a sound within Ableton. And at least I then know that the computer is receiving those MIDI notes. So the next step is to go on to the visuals, try and figure out how to do those. Now there's a whole load of different routes that I could have gone down. For example, I could have picked a piece of VJ software, for example. So VJs would use a bit of software to mix videos live and in real time in clubs. And I could have probably picked one of those. I bet one of those probably has MIDI input, so that when you hit a certain pad on a MIDI instrument, it would play a certain video. And that is definitely a good route to go down. If you're interested in playing around with all this stuff, then I definitely recommend giving it a go. But I've got a little bit of background in kind of building websites, so I kind of know some web stuff basically, and I did remember seeing some examples of how you can actually use a USB MIDI keyboard to play things within the browser. So there were a few synthesizers going around a little while ago, different drum machines actually built within the web browser, and you can actually control them from your USB MIDI controller. So I thought, well, let's try doing something with that. So I took one of those and I kind of adapted it to be how I wanted it to be. Now, I had this idea where I wanted to trigger different primary shapes whenever I hit one of the pads on the DJS. So when I hit the kick, for example, it would show a square. When I hit the snare, it will show a cross. So every different sound that is being played will show a different shape. And that's kind of how I went about it. Basically, I wrote a whole load of code to be able to do this. And what I'm going to do is I'll actually put all that code up online if you want to take it, if you want to adapt it, if you want to play around with it. I'm not going to get into the full details of it here because we're not going to go into coding on this channel. That's just way too much. But basically, it is a very simple example. Once you kind of understand it, it's kind of very simple example that whenever a MIDI message comes in, it will do a certain thing. So it will flash up a square or it will flash up the cross. And that's basically how I did it. There are a few different things within there. For example, when I'm playing different notes, I'm actually playing chords on the DJS. So I'm sending chords to Ableton to play. What it does on screen is it actually shows those notes that are being played. So for the keys and for the bass, you'll see that the different squares show up for the different keys that I'm actually playing. So there's a few different things that are going around there that are quite interesting, but basically it's just a whole big experiment. I wanted to play around and see what I could come up with something visual to kind of show exactly what I'm doing on the DJS. Now, of course, I know that this is, I suppose, a little bit of a cheat because I'm actually just using this as a MIDI controller. The actual DJS itself is not producing any kind of sound. Usually you would load in different one-shots or loops into the DJS and play them directly from here. But with that, by loading those samples in, I wouldn't then be able to send MIDI messages. So I wouldn't be able to trigger any kind of visuals. So really, this is it is a bit of a cheat. But what I'm hoping is that Pioneer might put some kind of way that maybe you could also trigger a MIDI message, a MIDI note, whilst you're playing a sample at the same time. That would be really cool, so that you're actually sending MIDI messages to a visual mixer or something like that, a computer that's playing the visuals, but you're also playing samples within the DJS. That would be really, really cool. So yeah, this is more of a kind of experiment to see if it could be done. And I want to kind of show, in theory, what it would be kind of like to kind of visualize a performance on something like the DJS-1000. So as I say, I'll put the code online if you want to have a look at it. I'll put a link up there and in the description below. Feel free to download it, tweak it, play around with it, do whatever you want with it basically, but just have some fun, because that's what I'm doing with this bit of kit at the moment. I'm just kind of experimenting around with it and playing with it and seeing what I can do with it. And hopefully in the future, maybe we will get that feature where we can play a sample on here, but it'll also then send a MIDI message or some kind of message to a computer that will then trigger a visual, because I think that'll be a really interesting thing for crowds, for the audience to have something visual to go with what you're doing on a bit of kit, for example. I think that could be a really interesting thing for the future. So hopefully this video has been useful to you. Maybe it's inspired you or given you an idea or something like that. If it has, then definitely subscribe to my channel. I've got a whole load more content like this on my channel, more DJS stuff, music production stuff, loads of stuff basically. So definitely get subscribed, hit that notification bell so you're notified the moment I upload a brand new video, and hopefully I'll see you again in the next one.